Hi, my name is Sarah Heffler, and I chose to research the sport of netball. In Springfield, Massachusetts in 1891, basketball was invented for the School for Christian Workers, which is now the YMCA, and then women's basketball began just 2 days later. Madame Austenberg took her version of women's basketball back to her women's college in England in 1895 and ended up developing what is now known to be like the early stages of netball. These early stages came from rules that were changed and modified for her physical education classes in which she taught the game. Some of the key rules were that it was played outdoors and on grass fields, and that the baskets were to be replaced by rings and nets. The field of play that netball is played on today is played on a sprung wooden court. So just like volleyball or basketball, it's that same kind of material, that court. And then on the two ends on the goal lines is a goal post, which is 10 foot high, and attached to that is a net with a metal ring, which is 15 inches in diameter. And you can see in that middle image what that kind of looks like. And then the ball that's used to play, the circumference of that ball is 27 to 28 inches, and it weighs between 14 and 16 ounces. So comparatively, the ball that is used for most adult basketball and in the NBA, it's 29.5 inches in circumference. So it's a smaller, lighter ball. But then compared to volleyball, the ball usually ranges from 22 to 24 inches in circumference. So it's larger in that sense, but just about the same weight. So the game is played with two teams of 7 players on each side. Each player has a specific area in which they can move. In the court I showed you before, there's 3 different areas, so the players are basically stuck in that in those thirds. And then the team with the ball, they can run, jump, throw, or catch. They can't dribble or roll the ball, but the goal is to move the ball into the goal circle of the opposing team and score. So they play in 4 quarters of 15 minutes each, and there's 4-minute breaks or intervals between the first and second and the third and fourth. And then halftime is usually 12 minutes, but it could be 8 minutes depending on the level of play. The development of the game of netball and rules. It was considered socially acceptable for women to play, which is what kind of caused it to spread. The influenced spread went to Australia and New Zealand in 1906, and it was known as women's outdoor basketball then. And then it spread rapidly throughout Jamaican schools in 1909. The first official set of rules was published by the Ling Association, which is now the Physical Education Association of the United Kingdom. And then in 1924, the first national governing body of netball was established in New Zealand. And then later on in the 1980s, men's netball became popular in Australia. The men's game slowly spread to other regions, including Canada, Kenya, and the United Arab Emirates, but it's not supported by governing bodies, so it is not a widely accepted or recognized sport. More development of the game. The international competition was originally hindered by the lack of funds and varying rules, but then in 1938, New Zealand and Australia played the first international game in Melbourne, and Australia won 40-11. So that kind of started off Australia's winning streak, and they're known to be like the powerhouse of the game, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The International Federation of Women's Basketball and Netball was established at a meeting in 1960. This is the governing body of netball, and representatives from England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and the West Indies all met in Sri Lanka to establish a governing body and agree on a set of rules, and they decided to hold a world championship tournament every 4 years, and this began in Eastbourne, England in 1963. So more on the governing bodies and recognition. The International Federation of Women's Basketball and Netball, as I mentioned earlier, was renamed the International Netball Federation, or the INF, in 2012. The INF accepts over 40 national netball associations, which is grouped into 5 regions: Africa, Asia, the Americas, Europe, and Oceania. So these regional federations are an integral part of global governance, and at each meeting that they have, there's representatives from those 5 regions to kind of to show that they're there to support what is happening in the sport in each of those 5 areas. And then in 1995, the sport of netball became recognized by the IOC, but it's not yet included in the Olympic Games. It was considered for the 2020 and 2024 Games, but it didn't make it past the first round of evaluations. Popularity and participation. Around the world, it's played by over 20 million people in 80 countries, and it's the most popular sport played by women in Australia and New Zealand. And as I mentioned earlier, Australia is basically the powerhouse. They're the winningest nation at the World Championships and other games. They currently hold 11 gold medals. Some participation rates I was able to find. England, in 2018, they had 269,000 participants. In 2019, they had 319,000 participants, and as of May 2020, there were 283,000 participants. Australia, like I said, there's a lot of people who are interested in playing and do play in Australia, and in 2019, they had over 900,000 participants. Although I was not able to find specific numbers for the participation rates in Canada and the United States. It is widely played in Canada, and there are 33 U.S. states that have some type of organization that plays and encourages the playing of netball. Athlete profiles. So I was actually able to find a study done in 2017 on netball athletes that evaluated their physical characteristics by playing position. So you can see that age in years, height, body mass, SLH, which I have noted as the single leg hop, SJ as squat jump, and CMJ as counter movement jump, in addition to some other physical fitness tests, including the 5 and 10 meter, were evaluated. And it was concluded that defenders and shooters demonstrate significantly greater body mass. Defenders have significantly greater heights compared to that of centers. And centers outperformed other positions in the physical fitness test, which you can see down below. So the study concludes that there are significant differences in the characteristics of different position players, and they recommended that strength and conditioning coaches, as well as any recruiters, really keep that in mind when looking for athletes to fill spots in their team. The major events for netball include the World Youth Cup and Commonwealth Games. I mentioned the World Championships earlier, so these are the three major events that are held every 4 years. The World Youth Cup started as a youth tournament held for athletes under 21 years of age in 1988 in Australia, and the success influenced the continuation of the tournament. It's next supposed to be held in 2021. They just moved the games from June to December because of the pandemic, but it is on track to be held in December in Fiji. And the Commonwealth Games, it's a multi-sport competition, and then there's athletes from the Commonwealth of Nations, which are nations that have broken from British rule. The top 12 ranking teams from the INF are chosen to play, and they're put into 2 pools, and they have round robin play. And the next event is supposed to be held in 2022 in Birmingham, England. And finally, the official sponsor of netball, this is the only official sponsor of the game, is Gilbert. So they provide the official INF ball and officials clothing, for international events. They're known for their expertise in creating sports balls and their use in volleyball and some other sports, and they have the best performing pattern and grip pattern for the ball. So they're the choice for many individuals, teams, and tournaments, not only for balls and other equipment, but also for uniforms and other clothing. These are the sources that I used. I primarily used the INF website, which was netball.sport, and then for the study that I mentioned earlier, I got that information from this journal article here. Thank you.